Uh-oh. It keeps on losing. Okay, perfect. Okay, Zok to head of the Gemara. Again, we're at the bottom of Daf Kuflam Zayin Beis. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Shakol Honi V'Yoed. It's called it. Oh, it'll be okay. Okay. I think it'll be okay. Yeah. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Hakadosh of Nechasav Lach. Someone wrote his Nechasim over to somebody else. The Amar Allah, and the recipient said, "Ef Shibahan." I don't want them. He refused the gift. The Allah is kana. The gift is nicknamed to the Mekabel, even against his will, even if he's protesting. That will definitely need some explanation. Rabbi Yechon said, no, of course you're not going about Korban. So Amar Bava B'Mamel, V'loi Pligi. There's not really a machlokes. It really depends on the circumstances. Kan b'tzabak meikar. When does Rabbi Yechon say that you could refuse a gift? That's if you protest right away. You don't want it. Nobody could force you to accept a gift if you don't want it. But where did Shmuel say that a gift is yours even if you protest? That's b'shoisek meikar ulam tzedek. First, you were mekabelit. Kana kiban the kibul ashtar b'shtika. He was mekabel the star. That means at that moment nisratza liskos b'matana. He willingly accepted the matana. Once it's his, you can't refuse to take it after it's already yours. And therefore, even if your tzavach doesn't help, and as the Bach says, once you accept something, you cannot get rid of it by saying unless you do a proper transaction. You have an option either to give it away or to mafker it. But magically it won't disappear because you stamp your feet and say, I don't like it. Amar of Nachman Bar Yitzchak. What would be Zichaloi al Yedei Acher? What if you had, so Reuven wanted to give matana to Levi, and what he did was he gave the star to Shimon. He told Shimon, you be kind of this on behalf of Levi. Levi was witnessing this occur, but no one gave him a star. The star was given to Shimon. So B'Shosak, he had no protest. Well, B'Soif, and later when Shimon wanted to give him the star, Tzavach, that's where he was protesting. So this already is Banu L'Machloikis Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Rabbanim. This would be totally in the Machloikis between Rab Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbanim. Titania we looked. I want to point out a controversial Rashbam. The Rashbam states, what happens if Reuben wants to give Shimon a matana, and Shimon says, I refuse to accept the matana? The Rashbam says that will not remain in the Rishus of Reuben. Reuben gave it away. It becomes hefker. And that's something that's under dispute by Tosfos. And there's a discussion as to when, under what circumstances does that become hefker. Could be if I refuse to take it right away, there it remains by the Bailam. And maybe only if I first decided to take it and then rejected it, if you hold that would work, maybe there goes after. But the Rashbam learns, and we'll stick to the Rashbam for now, that if Reuben tries to give Shimon a matana and Shimon refuses to accept it, it becomes hefker. So Banu L'Machloikis Shimon ben Gamliel v'Rabbanim. The Tanya we learned. Hakosav nechasav la'ach. What if someone writes his nechasim over to gift it to somebody else? Reuben gives it to Shimon. And it turns out that there are avodim in this in this in this asset group, and now the recipient says, "I don't want avodim because now I have the expense of feeding them, of supporting them. I'm not interested." So Amar Allah, I changed my mind. I don't want it at all. So the halacha is he's koinit. It's too late. And the litmus test is if the recipient of this gift, who originally was happy with it, and then he refused it, if he's a kohen, in other words, halachically, the avodim belong to him. Once he originally accepted them, they're his, and therefore they are allowed to eat truma, because we know a kohen is allowed to feed his avodim truma. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Kivan Shomer Halah Yavshi Bahen, since the recipient refused to accept him, Kfar Zochu Bahen Yorshin, the Yorshin of the giver automatically get it because their father didn't give it away. It remained in the father's rishos, and therefore goes to his Yorshin. Okay, Pavina. And we had a kasha on the Tanakam over here. Because the Tanakama said he's koina, even though he said he yefshi, I don't want it. The Tanakama afilu oimid v'tzavach. If the fellow is refusing to accept this matana, the Tanakama still holds that the makabel is koina against his will. That's not logical. So Amar Rav Avitem Rabbi Yochanan, the case was as follows. In the case of v'tzavach meikarai, if from day one, from the moment he became aware that someone's trying to give him a gift, he refused it. Everyone holds there that he's not koine, and of course the Rabbanan in that case would surely rule that these avodim may not eat truma if the makabel was a koine, because he wasn't makabel. The shaila is shasak ulubasayv tzava. If he was originally quiet and then he screamed, again the kula alma loy pligi dekani. There, everybody agrees you are koine, like we had at the beginning of the Amid. Because the moment you were shasak, you've indicated that you've accepted the gift. Now you can't get rid of it by screaming. You have to somehow either be mafker it or give it over to somebody else. Keep ligi. Where is there a machlokes? Where do the Rabbanan hold that there's a kinyan, even though this fellow seems to be protesting? Shazicha loy al yedei acher v'shasak. He didn't give the star directly to the recipient. He gave the star. So Reuven gave the star to Shimon so that Levi will be kind. So Levi is witnessing all this. Levi is seeing that Reuven gave Shimon a star, and Shimon was supposed to be kind on behalf of Levi. And Levi did not object at all. And then later on, Levi objected when Shimon was handing the star to him. So there's a machlok. The Tanakam Savar midashasa kaninu. You saw him giving it, you saw Reuben giving it to Shimon in front of you, and you didn't say, hey, I don't want it. So therefore, it's yours. And now that you're complaining and you refuse the gift, when Shimon is trying to hand over the star to you, you're trying to be chosher, kazar doesn't work. And therefore, they're your avodim. And if you're a kohen, these avodim are allowed to eat truma. But Rab Shimon Gamliel Savar, the fact that he is protesting now that Shimon wants to give him the star shows that he never even wanted to accept it when Reuben gave it to Shimon. Well, if that's the case, why didn't he open his mouth then? As soon as Reuben gave it to Shimon, he saw what was going on. Why didn't he protest right at that point? You know why he didn't scream at that point? Because Reuben's giving Shimon a paper that has nothing to do with me. I have no reason to scream. I'm only going to scream when what you're going to do is going to start affecting me. It's only going to start affecting when you give it to me. So therefore, it's not considered like I originally accepted it, and now I'm changing my mind. I never accepted it. I never rejected it. But I'm not going to express that until now, until it itches. I don't have to scratch it until it itches. And therefore, we don't say that his silence is an indication that he was makabel. His silence is an indication of indifference because he doesn't need to protest. When it was required, when the protest was warranted, he protested, and therefore it wouldn't be his. About Tanu Rabban. Now the problem is the Rashbam says that it's Rish Lakish, and he brings a Rish Lakish in Krisus. He brings a Rish Lakish in Krisus who holds that if Reuben wants to give Shimon a matana, and Shimon refuses it, then it becomes hefker. That's what the Rashbam quotes from Rish Lakish in Maseches Krisus. That one of the many kashas that Tosfos asks under Rashbam is, look at what Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says occurs if the Mekabel refuses. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says it goes to the Yorshim. It doesn't become hefker, meaning it remained by the Noisim, which seems to directly be a stira with what the Rashbam is quoting Rish Lakish as having said in Ksubas. So the teretz that the Rashbam gives is Eina Chanabi. The Rish Lakish will not be consistent with Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. He will be consistent with the Tanakama, who doesn't say that it goes to the Yorshim. The problem that Tosfos has with that teretz of the Rashbam is Rab Shimon ben Gamliel and the Rabbanan are not even talking about that child. They're arguing about a completely separate child. They're arguing is whether or not screaming and protest is warranted by Levi when Reuben gives it to Shimon to give to Levi. But whether or not, once it's considered a refusal, if it goes back to the notion or if it becomes hefker, they don't seem to be expressing a disagreement about that. So why would you assume that the Rabbanan are arguing on Rab Shimon ben Gamliel? That's not part of what the discussion is. So that's why Tosfos doesn't like the Rashbam's pshat. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter. Tanu Rabbanan. Shchivera she'omar tnu masayim zuz l'plein. A Shchivera who did the following. He said, I want masayim zuz to go to Pliny. V'sholosh me'os l'pleini. V'arba me'os l'pleini. The question is, does he want these things to occur simultaneously? Or does he want first A to get what he got, then B to get what he got, and then C to get what he got? So why would there be a nafkamina? There would be an nafkamina if there was a bachayv who came, right? We know the halachis of a bachayv comes, he first has to collect from the last person who got. Then he can collect from the second last, and then he can collect from the first. So here we look at it like they all occurred at the same time. Rather, you say that his intention was that they should all receive this gift simultaneously, which is how Matna Shchiv Merah works. What was he supposed to do if he wanted them to occur simultaneously? He couldn't have expressed them and articulated them simultaneously. We assume that the Matna Shchiv Merah, they're all occurring at the same time at death. Rashbam says if it was a regular matana, then there definitely is an order, a sequence of who got it first and who got it second, because it would be chalas he's giving it, and there the balchayv would have to first take from the last person who received it. So the fikach yotzalov shtarchayv goyv mikula. The balchayv can collect from each one of them, and the Rashbam says even though he can collect from each one of them, there's something in secular called we are both responsible jointly and separately. That clause means that the lender can collect from either one of us the full chayv. I can't say, well, we're partners, so I'm only paying 50. Over here, the Rashbam says we're each liable based on the ratio of how much we receive. So if I receive 50% of the estate, I'm mechuyev to pay 50% of what's owing. If I receive 25% of the estate, I will only have to pay 25% of what was owing, and so on and so forth.
It's not necessary. We're not talking about money. It could be land.
I'm so happy you brought it up. Zok to Rashbam, we have to be talking about land and not money.
Yeah.
Why? Because the metaltli of a Yisayim and not Meshubet Halachayv. Beautiful. So it has to be speaking about land. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention it. Aval Amar Tenu Masayim Zuz Laploini, the Acharav Laploini, and that's how he expressed the Matna Shchivmera. Then he's clearly trying to create an order, which means the last person will be liable first to pay off any chayvos. Then Oimrim Kolakodim B'Shtar Zoicha, Lefichach Yotzolov Shtar Chayv, Goyvim in the Achron, Ein Loi Goyvim Mishalafonov, Ein Loi Goyvim Mishalafnefon. So B'nai Reb Shimon mentioned that I want to look at that inside. And also there's a Geshmak Reb Kiveger. So let's look at the Heilige Rashbam. Rashbam says I want to find the Shpan. It talks about what Shimon said. Oh, here it is. Before they got the money, so the money is still in the estate. Inami, kagoin the hanim asayim zuz v'sholosh meis zuz are sodois sheshovois kach v'kachtam. So if they didn't receive the money yet, then the money can go straight to the bachoiv. But if they received it already, then the only way a bachoiv can go and take it away from them is if it was karka. Exactly as what Shimon said. Hilchach. Now we have another interesting thing. The Rashbam says, Hilchach, afilu la'akar shagavu. Even though they've already received their properties that was bequested to them by the donor, nevertheless, goiva ba'choiv mehen. Why couldn't the ba'choiv be goiva from them? Look at this Rashbam. The mekabel matna shchivmera. When you are receiving a matna shchivmera, you're considered like a Yerush Shavu Rabban. You're no different than a Yerush. And the karka that a Yerush gets is liable to pay for any chayvis that it's meshubit for, that it's leaned for from the nation, from the deceased. Right? So that's why, since you're just like a Yerush, the Yisraelim themselves, had they received this karka, they would have had to give it up to the Bachoy. So to you who received it as a matna shchivmera, even though you're not a Yerush, will treat you like a Yerush, and therefore the karka that you received as a gift will also be liable to the shibud of the Bachoy. So Reb Shimon's looking at me funny because he's saying, and if it was a matana, wouldn't it be the same thing? Right? That's I can read your eyes. Pelvic, right? So look at Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Nothing slips by Rabbi Akiva Eiger's analytical mind. Zok Rabbi Akiva Eiger, Tamayami. I don't understand what the Rashbam is saying. Hagam mimatnas bari goyva bishtar. That's not a symptom of the fact that a matna shchivmera, even if it's a regular matana. If there's a lien on the property, whether you sell it, whether you give it away, whether you give it to a Yerush, no matter what, it's liable to pay your chayv back. So why is Rashbam indicating that vibalt, I'm like a Yerush, that's why I can get it. No matter what I'm considered, there's no way I can get it without it being liable. So that's Rabbi Akiva Eiger's kasha. Rashbam makes it sound like it's only because of shchivmera as a Yerush that it's going to be exposed to seizure from the Bachlei. Zok the Gemara. Taner Rabbanan. Shchivmera she'omar. Oh, so another point, another very important point Rashbam makes. Why is it that the example that the Brisa gives is where each person was getting a different amount? It's the same halacha if they all got the same amount. So why was the case where he said give 200 to Pliny and 300 to Pliny and 400 to Pliny? So Rashbam makes a very interesting deal. If he's giving 200 to Reuven and 300 to Shimon and 400 to Levi, who does he like the best? Probably Levi. He's giving him $400, right? So you would think that Levi, he wants to make him immune from seizure. So you might have thought that the guy who he gave more to, that's for sure the guy who he wants to be in the third position to collect from. Kamash Malon, if he doesn't say Acharov, everybody's equally exposed. Taner Rabbanan. Shchivmera she'omar tnu masayim zuz laploini b'ni b'char karoyuloi. That's quite a wordy statement. Give 200 zuz to Reuven, who is my b'char, and you stick in an extra word karoyuloi, which doesn't make any sense. The halach is, because of that extra word, it means you're trying to give him something extra. And therefore you say noitlan, he gets 200 zuz, and we don't consider that part of his pishnayim. That's extra to the whole deal. And you look at the estate when you split up the pishnayim after he's received those 200 zuz. The noitlas b'chayrasai after, in addition to the 200 zuz that he got. But im Amar biv chayrasai, if he says Tenu Masayim Zuz Laploini B'ni B'char Biv Chayrasai, give it to him as his B'chayra, then he has a choice. The B'char has a choice. Yodei Al Hal Yoina, he could choose. Rata Noitlan, if he determines that his Pishnayim would be less than 200 zuz, then he'll take the 200 zuz because it's a better deal. But Rata, if it turns out that 200 zuz is less than what his Pishnayim would have been, then Noitlan B'chayrasai. Similarly, Ushchivim Rash Amar Tenu Masayim Zuz Liploinis Ishti. Give 200 zuz to my wife. Again, karoyolo, you stuck in those extra words. In other words, the question is it for a ksuba or is it an external gift? Karoyolo, that extra word says that noitloson Vinay tell us as ksubas. If he said I wanted to give it to her as her ksuba, once again, turning on Talmud Beis, she has that option. Yada al yoina, it's her choice. Ratanai tlasan, if that's better for her than collecting from a ksuba. Ratanai tell us ksubas. What about another case? Shivara sha'amar numa sayim zuz leplani ba'choyim. Shivara said, give 200 zuz to Reuven, who I owe money to, karoyulai. Once again, that's going to be extra to what the loan is. Noitlan, the Bachoiv gets these $200 bonus, but that doesn't impact the right that he has to collect from his choiv. But if he said, I want you to give him $200 to pay back the choiv, then noitlan b'choiv. Then he takes it only as the choiv. Correct the Gemara. I don't understand. Mishum de Amar Karayuloi, Noitlan, Vanoitlas Chayvai. Why are you telling me that if he's about to use the words Karayuloi, suddenly that means that he's giving it to the Bachayv over and above what he owes the Bachayv? Vildilma Karayuloi B'chayvai. Maybe he's giving him $200 as per the Chayv. Maybe that's what it means. Who said it means I want to give it to him extra? Maybe it means I'm giving it to him because it's due to him. Memela by the others, it might not have been due to them, but this is due to him. So maybe Karayul means I'm giving him what is coming due to him. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Lihuna, Hamani Rabbi Kiva. This is going according to Rabbi Kiva, the Daik Lishni Yisera. Rabbi Kiva holds when people speak, they speak precisely. And therefore, if they throw in a term that's out of place, that doesn't seem to be necessary, we read into it. And we say that this person clearly meant to provide some other benefit. So if Balti stuck in the word karoy, which he didn't need to say, it shows that he wants to give extra. Where do you find Rabbi Akiva's concept? It's non-bilurt. If you sell your property and you say, I want to sell my umkalaruma from the core of the earth to the sky, I'm giving you the entire property, it still doesn't include a bar or a dus, a water reservoir. It will not include that if that's in your property as well. So Abal Pisha cause of life, Varuma, nevertheless, the bar and the dus in the yard was not included in the sale. Now, he owns the property, I own the bar and the dus. How am I going to get to it? Zokt Rabbi Kiva, the tzarech likach loy, derech, divrei Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva also, when someone sells something, he sells it be'ayin yofa. He gives the max. So he doesn't retain for himself anything. So now if he wants to gain access to his own bar and his own dus, he will have to buy it back from the purchaser. The Chacham, a person doesn't sell be'ayin yofa. If he is retaining for himself the bar and the dus, he's obviously retaining for himself as well access to that bar and dus. But the punchline here is, what if he sold the property and he spoke out, which he didn't need to, because by default, according to Rabbi Kiva, he gets to keep the bar v'dus. But he spoke out, I want to retain the bar v'dus. So, then there he doesn't have to buy, because he spoke out extra words, chutz me'elu, which were redundant, because anyway, they're not included in the sale. That's an indication that he wants more here, and he wants to retain for himself the right to access his bar v'dus. So what do you see from Rabbi Kiva? Amal kivin the loy tzarech v'ka amar, since he didn't need to say it, yet he said it anyway. L'tfuya milta, he's trying to make a specific change in this contract. Hachanami, so too when he said karoyulam, which is for sure not necessary. V'ka amar, yes, he said it anyway. L'tfuya milta, he must be meaning to add something, and in this case, we're learning that he's adding that this is over and above the chayv, over and above the pishnayim, over and above the two. Gewaltig. So let me ask you a question. Rabbi Kiva says that it's clear from Rabbi Kiva that if you use the extra lashon, it means that you want to retain that extra right of access to yourself. Do the Rabbanan dispute that? The Rabbanan said, regardless the derech is included, the Rabbanan aren't really expressing an opinion about whether or not an extra lashon means to be married something. So there's no reason to assume that the Rabbanan are arguing Rabbi Kiva. So why are we stalling it out like a yochid, Hamani Rabbi Kivi, Hamani Kula Almahi? That's the Rishbam's kasha. But you only see it from Rabbi Kiva. So the Gemara says I'm on Rabbi Kiva because you see the point the face from Rabbi Kiva. But Avad is the Rabbanan as well, and this is not showing it like a yochid. Kula al mamoida. Rabbi Kiva brought the point out, but kula al mamoida, an extra lashon you read into. Tana Rabbanan. Shchiv Mera she'omar Mona Yeshli Eitzel Plain. Very, very fascinating case. Someone's about to die, and he tells Adam, I just want you to know that Chaim Yankel owes me $100,000. Why is he saying this to Adam? Because he wants his kids to go claim it. So he wants to make sure that someone knows that there's an outline choy, right? It's important that a person tells his children all of the life insurance policies he has. The person should tell his children the password to all his bank accounts. Because Chas v'Shalom, someone dies and he takes those secrets with him, it's going to be very difficult for the family to deal with these things. And there's Edom who hear that. Edom Koshvin, the Edom are allowed to record that. We heard Reuven before he died, say that Chaim Yankel owes him $100,000. Even though they don't independently know that Chaim Yankel owed him $100,000. They're just recording what Reuven said. They're allowed to write that down, which means it doesn't really prove anything. This document would be invalid to collect with it because it's not a document of proof. It's just a document so that his children should know to investigate. If the children want to be goiva using that star that these Edom signed, they would have to bring a raya, in fact, that Chaim Yankel owes them the money, because this star is no raya at all. Diver of Meir. But the Chum ain't kosin ela became makirin. If they want to write that the Shchivmer Aruben told us that Chaim Yankel owes them $100,000, they have to have independently verified that that's the truth. Therefore, since they have to independently verify that this choiv exists, so therefore it's logical to say that when they sign it, it's a valid star, and now the children can actually collect with this star. Amar Nachman Amar Lihuna, Tana, we learned, our mayor Omer ain't kosher. Our mayor holds that they're not allowed to do that. Why wouldn't they allow to write it? The Chachamim are mekoshin, and the Chacham said you could write. The offer of Mayor Amar, Mayor, the reason why he said in koshin is not because the Chacham holds ain't. I'm sorry, not Chacham. Because you go over tzarich laviraya, and the Chachamim ain't tzarich laviraya. So the Gemara here says there are males they shouldn't write it. The Chachamim koshin. Why would your mayor say you can't write it? Reb Meir says anyway it doesn't prove anything, so why can't they write it? It doesn't prove anything. If it doesn't prove anything, there's no danger that they're going to collect from Chaim Yankel wrongfully. Zok the Gemara about Reb Meir Amar Elamishum Bezdin Toy. We're afraid that the Yosimim will take this star, they'll go to some other Bezdin who is not properly skilled, and that Bezdin won't know the halacha. They'll think that the Edom must have verified it if they actually wrote it, and they'll collect with it, and that's not true. So therefore, Zok Meir, they shouldn't write this star at all, because if they write this star, it could lead to a wrongful collection from Chaim Yankel if some mistaken Bezdin thinks that you can collect with this star. Amar Avdimi Minardo, so Avdimi Minardo Paskind Hilchaza Ein Choishin LeBezdin Toy. So if you're not Choishish LeBezdin Toyin, these Edom have a right to sign that Reuven said that Chaim Yankel owes him $100,000, and that's a legitimate star. But Avada, all Botei Didim will know that they can't collect with it, and if the Yisomim want to collect, they'll have to independently verify that there was this chayvim. Correct, Gemara. If you're telling me that you're not choshish lebezdin toyin, I'm going to show you that you are choshish lebezdin toyin, and therefore we shouldn't allow such a star to be written in the first place. Where do you find that? In Rava's case, you see your choshish lebezdin toyin. The Amar Rava ein choyeltin elam kein makir. A woman comes with a man to Bezdin, and she says, I'm an almana, and I'm a yavama, and this man is my yavam, and he's going to do chalitza for me, and therefore I will be able to remarry. Now, does Bezdin have to independently verify that this is true, that he is the brother-in-law? Or maybe they can just write a star that we saw Chaim Yankel give chalitza to Rivka. So to Gemara, Rava says they shouldn't write that we saw Chaim Yankel do chalitza to Rava. You know why? To Rivka. You know why? Because we need to know for sure that this is a legitimate chalitza. Or the we know there's something called miyun. Miyun means that this daughter who was married off, she was a Yisayma, her mother married her off, or her brothers married her off, which is only a Derabanan marriage. She could just walk away from the marriage if she declares miyun. So what if she comes with some man to Bezdin and she says, "This is my husband, I'm making miyun." But Bezdin's not allowed to write a star that this woman is a free woman because she did miyun to her husband if they don't independently verify that this in fact was her husband. So since they don't do it, since they're not allowed to do that, lefichach koisvin get chalitza v'get miyun ve'alfa pishen makir. Since it's known that Bezdin would never allow that to occur and write a psak that this occurred, since we know they won't do it unless they independently verify that this is the right couple and it's in fact a good transaction, that's why they could write it. Because now she'll take this star that she got chalitza and she can go to some other town and she'll want to remarry. And the husband says, "I don't want to remarry you. Maybe you're still connected." She could present that in the Bezdin in the next city, and they'll say, "Oh, if we have a star from Bezdin that she got chalitza, we can take it to the bank. We can be sure that she had a proper chalitza from the proper person." So the ficha koisen get chalitza, we get miyun, the afapi she'ein makirin. Therefore, you can write so the ficha koisen get chalitza, we get miyun. The afapi she'ein makirin, even though they don't know them. My timer, lav mishum the choishin lebezin time. Why is it that the ein mamayin elam kein makirin? Why is that? The problem is that if they write a star about a chalitza that occurred and they didn't confirm that in fact this was the right couple, there's going to be a problem, and therefore you see that you're choishish lebezin time. Let's see the Rashbam.
Did this woman have a chesed in our money?
Could be she had chesed almana, but she had also a chesed zika that there's a brother-in-law.
We're talking about a case.
Otherwise, it's special also bashita.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So let's have a look at the Rishpam. Therefore, kivan she'ein chayolton elam kein makirin, since Bezdin would not accept a process of chalitza unless they knew these are the right people. Therefore, koisvin edim get shel chalitza umiyan latira aval b'shein makirin. Therefore, the edim. So we have Bezdin. Bezdin will never allow this to happen. Since Bezdin will never allow this to happen, if there's edim there in Bezdin watching Bezdin do this, edim could sign a star that this was a proper chalitza, even though they haven't independently verified it, because they know if it's going on in Bezdin, Bezdin must have verified. Surely Bezdin wouldn't have officiated this ceremony had they not independently verified that this was the right couple. So therefore, even though the Edom are oblivious to the facts, the mere fact that they write, we saw Bezdin do it, is proof positive that this woman is properly free. The Hilchach, if the Edom just write, we saw Shechalta Umina mi Ploini, we saw she got chalitza from Chaim Yankel. I feel like deal. Even if they didn't write that we independently verified that she is the Yavama of this man, rather we just saw this occur in a Bezdin, Nisis Bey Desu, that star will be enough to get her to remarry. My timer, Ein Cholton Elam Kemakirin. Why is it that Bezdin wouldn't even officiate such a ceremony unless they first independently verified that this is the right couple? Lav Mishum, the Choshin of Bezdin Toyin. The only reason is because we're choshish that Bezdin will make a mistake and allow her to remarry. Kidaprecious, like I explained. Shimata Omer Cholton Beloy Makirin. If Bezdin can officiate on the ceremony of Chalitza without verifying that this is the right couple, then Edom will sign a star that we saw this Chalitza occur. She'll take this star to a different Bezdin, and a different Bezdin won't know that the first Bezdin didn't verify it. Yitu Bezdin Sheni La'asiyah B'loy B'dika. They're going to assume that the first Bezdin checked. But the problem is they don't know the halacha. If the halacha was Bezdin doesn't have to check, then merely having a star sign that Bezdin officiated over a chalitza is useless in the next Bezdin. But the next Bezdin might be ignorant. They might not know the halacha, and they'll let her remarry. This second Bezdin can wrongfully think that the first Bezdin verified it, when in fact they don't have to verify it. Because they're making a mistake by halachazu, usvurin, and they think cholton afal pi she'ein makir. I'm sorry, that's not right. They hold you could only be cholton if you are makir. Well, ilnami, and therefore neichesh levesin toyin v'loimein koshin kreb meir. The question is, we paskin when it came to shtoris that you signed, that Adam signed when a shchivmira says that Chaim Yankov owes money, we say they can sign such a star, and we're not worried that another Bezdin will collect based on the star, because Bezdin knows that the Adam could write his star, even though they didn't verify that the facts were true. And therefore we say, Ein Chodesh lo Bezdin Toyin. Yet, when it comes to Chalitza, we changed the halacha. We said that Bezdin has to be careful not to officiate on a Chalitza or on a Mian unless they know. You know why? Because we're afraid if Bezdin can officiate even though they don't know, another Bezdin might accept it and marry her off. So are you choshet that the Batadinim will work together and know what's going on and know that this is not a proven Chalitza? Or not? When it comes to dinim omnis, when it comes to collecting, we say that the second Bezdin will know we can't collect with this star. This star just says it. That's what the Shchivmara told you. But there's no verification that it was true. So why don't you say the same thing? They get a star chalitza. They'll say, yeah, it's very nice. Bezdin saw chalitza, but no one ever verified that you got chalitza from the right man, right? If they know about the other batadinim could issues at the star without verification, so why would it be any different by chalitza? Zok to Gemara. So umashna with the Rav in chalkin el b'chem akirin ve'im ma'aminin elam kem akirin lefichach koshim get chalitza. The get me and makirin. That's why they can write the star, even though the Adam don't know, because we're sure the Bezdin verified. Why? My time. And what would be the reason for this? Lav mishum the chosh levezin toin. It's obviously because we're chosh levezin toin, and that's why the first Bezdin has to already verify before they can officiate. So it's shver because in our sugya we don't say that. Dr. Gemara loy Bezdin basar beidina loy dai. Bezdin basar Adam daiku. There's a very big difference. When this star that the Adam wrote, the Reuven said, Chaim Yankov owes $100,000. There was no Bezdin involved. So when the Bezdin sees that star, they'll say, "Hey, how do we know it's true?" Because two Adam signed, these two Adam Amaratim. But when you come with a star chalitza that says that it was a chalitza done in front of Bezdin, there they'll say, "Oh, done in front of Bezdin, probably was done properly." So therefore, when it's a question of one Bezdin looking at the actions of a previous Bezdin, there they will rely, and you can have Bezdin Toyin. But when they're just looking at the actions of Adam, you don't need to worry, because they're going to be skeptical when they look at it, and they won't enforce it without a proper right. Gewaltig. Zogt Gemara weiter. Ha'av toileish umaychel l'chol misha yirtz. If the father gave away to his son with a meheyoim ula'achamisa, the discussion that we were having, where he wanted to give the nechasim to his son, so he says, "My field is yours, mehayoim kidin aguf, ula'achamisa kidin peiros." But up until the father dies, he has the peiros. So the halach is he can be toilish peiros and give it to whoever he wants, because the peiros are completely his. Uma sheniach tolish. What if he dies and there's harvested peiros in the property? Does that go to the son who we gifted the field to, or does that go to the general Yerusha? So the halach is hareu shel Yerusha. So after he dies, if there's peiros pollution in the field, that will for sure go to the Yorshim. That wasn't included in the Kinyan Aguf, that the son is in the Kinyan Aguf and the Kinyan Peiros, that the son was going to get from this property, because he only gets everything that happens after Misa. But Tolish Peiros, which are not considered part of the property, that's not part of the gift that was given to the son. That will fall into the general pot. Zok Gemara, Tolish in Mechuberloi. What if you have a fully grown field that's absolutely ready to be harvested, but it wasn't harvested yet? it's mashma clearly that would go to the son, right? Sprek the Gemara, V'atanya, we learned fakir. We learned what if the gift of Mehayom Lachamisa wasn't to a son? It was to a third party. The Brisa says beferish that if there's fruit in the field that's ready to be harvested, although we don't take it away from the Lakech, when the Lakech takes over the field, he keeps those pears, but he has to reimburse with cash the estate about those pears. So you see clearly that the pears that are mechuber to the field that are ready to be harvested are not considered part of the field. They're considered part of the estate. So if they're considered part of the estate, when he sold it to a lakeach, if he gave it to a son, it's exactly the same structure. Why do we say that the son gets that? There's a very big difference. Kan bivnoi, kan b'acher. When you give to your son, you're more giving than when you're selling to a third party. When you're selling it, yes, anything that's fully grown, I don't mean to sell. But I'm giving to my son, I want to include as well in what he's going to receive as a gift, the pears that are connected to the field. Okay, we'll stop here, B'ez Hashem, and we will continue tomorrow. Gewaltig. Shkoyach, everybody. We should have a bench today.
Yeah.